You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, January 19th. We are less than 24 hours away from the 49ers playing their first playoff game of the 2023-2024 season, divisional round against the Green Bay Packers. Joining me to talk about the matchups we like and maybe the ones we don't like so much, as always on a Friday, Laurie Fitzpatrick. Laurie, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready for these 49ers to, take it all the way like we've been talking about all year. So I'm excited to talk about these matchups, to see the ones that I do kind of like, the ones I don't, like so much. But in the end, let's go over it.
And let's go 49ers. With that, let's start off looking at the weather because it looks like it could be an interesting one as far as the weather goes. So Santa Clara, Saturday night, we're looking at a 5:15 local time kickoff, and there's going to be some showers in the forecast. It's indicated as much for like the past week. And if you look at the hourly or the hour by hour forecast, and I'm looking at it right now, it changes every single hour you look. So let me look at it right now. As of 6 p.m. The day prior, we're looking at, let's see here, a 0.5 inch rainfall. And so that's not too bad, right? That's probably like showers, some very light rain. So if it does rain, like I'm really not expecting it to play a big role in this game, which is a good thing. The only thing that might is that there's going to be some winds. You see 10 to 15 miles an hour winds. So Jake Moody has to go out there and kick. And remember, the last memory we have of Jake Moody kicking was him actually missing. Hopefully that doesn't play a role on Friday. But regardless, I think for both teams, they would like to run the ball. They're both very much run heavy to start. So I think some rain, both teams might like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like I'm looking at Florida weather over here, seeing this.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And as far as the injuries go for the 49ers, this is as healthy as they've been maybe all year. Like, I don't think I can recall seeing a shorter injury report for the 49ers all season. So that in itself is huge for them. Some key players returning from multi-week injuries are defensive tackle Eric Armstead and special teams ace and safety George Odom. And on the Packers side, Jair Alexander, A.J. Dillon, their running back, linebacker Isaiah McDuffie, those guys are questionable. I would assume that, they're going to suit up. This is an important game for them, but just something to keep an eye on as we get closer to game time when the active and inactives get announced. But Laurie, let's get into these matchups now, right? Let's get into it. And as always, we start off with the cautious matchups on the show. I'm just saying, I actually have both quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Jordan Love, as cautious matchups for the 49ers. I want to start with Brock Purdy because he has the potential of going up against some cover 6 in this game. In my show with Rich Madrid yesterday, he noted that the Ravens broke some defensive tendencies against the 49ers to run more cover 6 in that Christmas game. We saw how that kind of went. And the Packers run cover 6 11% of the time. You see here, they're listed at the bottom. So 11% of the time in the regular season. But like the Ravens, maybe they break some tendencies to, increase the amount of cover 6 tomorrow, Saturday. So, maybe to just try to get Brock Purdy to think a little bit more, all these things. Of course, as far as personnel goes, it's very clear the Packers are not the Ravens, so it would look different anyway. But I'm just saying, just something to keep an eye on. in this game and see if they do try it, how Purdy responds to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Kyle Hamilton on this team. But just a little shout out to Rich. That's
Yeah.
awesome that you had him on because he knows his stuff. I actually just read an article of his. Make sure you guys check out his West Coast football
That's awesome.
or not podcast, sorry, his Substack.
The Substack, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I just read that article actually. And he did some of that cover 6 covering that on his interceptions, Purdy's interceptions. And what I noticed about some of that cover 6 is they actually split the field. They were running some the safeties would cover half the field, and the other side of the field they would run that cover 6. So they kind of split the field when it was heavy. When they saw that the offense was running heavy pass on one side, they would do the cover 6, and then on the other side of the field they would split it because there was maybe just the tight end on the line of scrimmage extended, and they would basically just run a safety on this one half of the field. So it's like they were accommodating to what they saw on the offensive side of the ball. The Ravens D, man, that's a high level defense.
Right.
And to be honest, like it's good that maybe you have Brock Purdy on here just to be cautious, but and I don't want to move on too fast, but Jordan Love, man, I mean, there's a disadvantage,
Yeah.
but yeah, Brock Purdy, he just has to watch out. Those windows are going to be a lot smaller in cover 6.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know he's used to those windows being a little bit more open when he's thrown against those zone defenses in the cover in cover 2, cover 3. Those windows are a lot bigger. So and then especially when you're playing against man coverage, they have to be leading the receiver, and you have to make sure that your receiver does beat that corner, and you have to throw a perfect ball. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely be a little nervous, but you just have to trust that Brock Purdy doesn't take too many chances, and
Yeah.
he just throws it in the places where he knows the receiver is going to be. Don't try to force it.
Exactly. Which he's been great at for the most part, and I think that that Ravens game was a bit of an eye opener for him. In recent interviews, he's kind of talked about finding that balance of, it's okay to just take the check down. You don't need to force things and all that. But also speaking of Brock Purdy, he'll need his offensive line to continue to protect him. And looking at the Packers defensive line, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary going against that right side of the 49ers line is an area of concern, as I've mentioned almost every single week. And so the 49ers will need to stay, I think, in positive down and distances to help keep them at bay. And I've brought up Brandon Thorne and his analysis before. He's like an offensive line guru, and he writes for establishtheRun.com. And so in his weekly defensive line, offensive line mismatch piece that he puts out every week, he had the Packers defensive line over the 49ers offensive line as the third biggest defensive line, offensive line mismatch of these weekend's games. And one of the things he said, Packers defensive line ranked 19th in pass rush win rate, 6th in pressure percentage, and 8th in quarterback hurry percentage. The 49ers offensive line ranked 20th in pass block win rate, 14th in pressure percentage, and 12th in sacks per pass attempt given up. So something to keep an eye on in this one as well. Obviously, Brock Purdy against pressure splits with and without blitz is interesting too, because Packers blitz 22.9% of the time. And I think when you look at it, actually I had a slide for this too. When you look at it, the best way to, I guess, pressure Purdy is to not blitz. And if you get pressure with 4 guys, you see his splits, at 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions when he's not blitzed, but he's getting pressured, and his DVOA drops to 10.7% compared to all the other metrics you see here. Obviously, he's been known to dice up the blitz. So if the 49ers can keep Brock Purdy upright and can keep the Packers 4 guys up front ineffective, maybe even force them to start blitzing. I think this goes, this plays into the 49ers hands a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing, honestly, looking at that. Everything is ranked number 1, then, ranked 13 is just, when that pressure comes and it's easier, it's hard to say this because obviously I'm not a quarterback in the NFL and I'm not facing a blitz, but, usually you can replace the ball, from in that position where the blitzer is coming from. So it can kind of just be like a whole, replacement thing in your head, where okay, the blitz is coming from there. That means there's going to be an opening there, and you can throw it there. That's just like basic, quarterback knowledge when going against a blitz. But the difference with the pressure is you have to find that open guy. That's where you have to be the best quarterback, the best version of a quarterback of yourself. And so that's why people are saying, oh, Brock Purdy, maybe he's not such a good quarterback, but he's a good game manager, because you want to see that rank be higher, because he has to be more innovative. He has to read better defenses if he wants to get that stat up. So yeah, that's definitely that's tough to see. That stat
Yeah,
right there.
and I mean, usually, like if teams could get pressure without blitzing, it just means there's more guys in coverage, right? So
Yeah.
what this says is when there's more guys in coverage, and this goes along with like us talking about the cover 6 as well, like it crowds the passing lanes. It makes it so you have to throw those tighter window throws. Like that's kind of when things get a little bit dicey.
Yeah.
But for a lot of quarterbacks, that's the case.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
just something to keep an eye on in this one.
but what I want to see from Brock a little bit is, nothing, we don't see this very often for him to use his legs, but you saw Dak Prescott be able to do that, against the Packers. I know that obviously they got beat, but times where Dak was, shit in the bed, which he does a lot in the playoffs, and we expected that, but he was able to kind of gain some yards by using his legs. Because one of the one of the favorable matchups is going to be this Packers linebackers group. And they kind of spread themselves a little thin, when it comes to the middle of the field. So I'm gonna kind of touch on that, and that could be a good opportunity for Brock Purdy to kind of, uh, you know, go up the field. So just
Yeah,
say, I know that's not his style, but
I mean, he could do it, and I think earlier in his career, he was doing it more, and maybe at times even escaping like a clean pocket, like before he even really needed to. But I think he dialed that back, and I think now maybe he realizes, well, sometimes I can use my legs, and it could get us a few yards here and there if I can't find the guy downfield rather than forcing it. But let's move on to the next one. And before I gotta hold myself accountable here, Tisha asking for the draft sheet update. It is still in the drafts, Tisha. I know I said I'd put it out Friday. I'll probably put it out after this, actually, just because stay true to my word. But it's a first draft, as I always say, it's a working document, so it's going to get updated from now to all the way to draft day, basically. So just keep that in mind. There's not a whole lot of information in there right now, but it's going to grow the closer we get to April. And yeah, Technic Chic mentions Purdy can scramble a bit. Yeah, he definitely can. It's something he hasn't really done lately, but he definitely has that in his back pocket. Definitely something we can see against the Packers. But let's talk about the other quarterback on the other side, because he's a bit of a cautious matchup for me here against this 49ers pass defense. I think for the obvious reason, like Jordan Love is a cautious matchup just because he's gotten way more comfortable in the offense, building chemistry with his receivers. The receivers, I think, have gotten more comfortable in the offense, and you kind of seen them grown throughout the year, and they're all like kind of growing together, and it's come to this point. And he has an insane arm, and it'll have him attempting throws that most quarterbacks, probably wouldn't. For example, like in the face of pressure, he can throw downfield accurately off his back foot. And lately, like pressure in his face doesn't seem to phase him all that much. Like he shows a lot of patience. He keeps his eyes upfield. He's able to find an open guy if he escapes the pocket as well. Jordan Love had the 5th lowest sack percentage this season. So for the 49ers secondary, I think marrying the coverage with a good pass rush is going to be key. And as we know, the 49ers defensive line in particular, well rested. So I'm assuming that it's going to be a better day for the pass rush. And that'll be important in this game for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that his best stat is throwing deep center. Like his highest passer rating on PFF, he has an 89.1 when throwing it to the deep center. He has 348 yards when targeting there. 2 TDs, 1 interception. I mean, honestly, he has that arm. I don't see this as a huge disadvantage. I see your next topic as more of a disadvantage than just Jordan Love, because I just think the 49ers defense is good enough to be able to kind of slow him down. It's just the way that LaFleur, I would say he would be more of the disadvantage, just because LaFleur maybe knows Kyle Shanahan a little bit more than any other coach that you guys have played outside of the Rams, but that was like week 18. Nobody really cared about that game. So, yeah, LaFleur would be a guy that we gotta watch out for how they spread the ball around. Mina Kimes has mentioned how I think they led the league in the amount of targets used. They had 9 different leading receivers throughout the year. So I just think them being able to spread the ball around is something that is a little more worrisome for me.
And I think it also it depends on the matchup, right? Because they have so many receivers and so many new receivers that that all do different things well. I think you can kind of find which matchup you like in each game, and that guy, blows up for the day, and that's who they're going to feed. Or, the defense really keys in on one guy. So, we'll just throw to this guy instead. So they're kind of building their own kind of pick your poison offense with Green Bay as well. And one thing I wanted to point out, in this discussion too, so I talked about Brandon Thorne's, rankings. 49ers defensive line have the biggest mismatch of all in these weekend's games against the Packers offensive line. And what Brandon Thorne said about this matchup, the 49ers defensive line ranked 12th in pass rush win rate, 9th in quarterback knockdown percentage, and 18th in pressure percentage, 30th in blitz percentage. Eric Armstead is set to return to the lineup after being out since week 14 with an injury. The Packers offensive line ranked 2nd in pass block win rate and 25th in quarterback hurries given up. So, I think kind of like what you said, the 49ers have the defense. They certainly have the defensive line to make things a little tough on Jordan Love and this Packers, offense.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And one thing too, I just want everyone to know, Love is going to have a number of throws where oh man, how did he do that? So we're gonna be frustrated a few times. However, I just think if the 49ers just stick to their game plan, I think they can wear this team down. And the 49ers run zone at the 7th highest rate in the league. Loves touchdown to interception ratios against zone compared to man are significant. 23 touchdowns, 1 interception against man coverage, and 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions against zone. And so this may also be a wide receiver core stat. We talked about how good those guys have come along. But in any case, I think the 49ers, need to play zone, and I think they're going to be disciplined, something the Cowboys defense, on the other hand, last week was not.
Yeah, well, who Love targets the most against that cover 4 zone is Romeo Doubs. So he's definitely going to be a guy that the 49ers have to watch out for. He gets a significantly higher number when it comes to playing against cover 4. So
yeah, that's interesting, and I'm glad you point that out. So that could be a matchup that they look at going into this one. Did you have any other cautious matchups, Laurie? Are we good?
No, I think we're good. I think we're
Okay.
good. I'm more focused on the favorable matchups because honestly, I just
Me
don't
too.
think this is going to be a game where there's too many you know, misfortunes, I guess you could say, when it comes to be going against his 49ers team. I think they have that stacked team. And I'm really surprised that they're even going against the Packers, to be honest. Not to take them lightly, but on the other hand, I'm just like, I just don't see, the Packers being that huge Goliath when when it comes to playing against the 49ers. So I'm more on the favorable sides here. I'm ready to jump into those.
All right, perfect. Before we do, just wanted to get to a couple of these comments. Alex says that Nick Bosa impression was perfect, spot on, bro. And Carlos says Nick channels or Steph channels Nick. Yeah, I put out a new Nick Bosa impersonation video earlier today. Of course,
Oh
Nick
shit.
Bosa had to hype up the team go before this matchup. So gonna have one every week as long as 49ers are in the playoffs. So make sure you guys check that out on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram, Steph49K. But let's get into these favorable matchups. Talking about the 49ers defense still and, the Packers offense, Aaron Jones against this 49ers run defense. And so for the same reason of the 49ers having a better defensive line than the Packers do offensive line, I like the 49ers being able to stop Aaron Jones and the Packers run game in this one. And one thing to keep an eye on, I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show, AJ Dillon, he's listed as questionable. I expect he'll probably play just because this is a big game. They're going to need him. He may be back after being out for multiple weeks. So important to keep an eye on that. There might be some things they like to do with Dillon instead of Jones, but Jones has been rolling lately. But the only thing I want to point out here, and you can see what he's done in the last 4 weeks, he's averaged 6 yards per attempt in week 16, then 6.1, then 5 yards per attempt against Chicago in their regular season finale, and then against the Cowboys last week, 5.6 yards per attempt and 3 rushing touchdowns. And there's a lot of green as far as his, grades go from PFF. But
Yeah, in
tell me if
those
you
last
see
games.
something. Tell me if you see something here. I just want to look at these numbers and look at the defenses they faced
Yeah,
from week 16 on. Notably, bad run
horrible defense.
defenses.
Yeah.
The Panthers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Cowboys, who have a bad run defense and was on full display last weekend. Now, the 49ers run defense this season has been third in rushing yards allowed per game, and they're getting back Eric Armstead, as we're going to continue to reiterate because it's huge. So again, I think the 49ers are going to be able to shut down this Packers run game, and that's their biggest key of the day, because for the Packers, I think that's their biggest key of the day is to try to get Aaron Jones going. So if the 49ers can stop him, I think, the rest of the game can kind of come to them.
Yeah, I mean, and when you were like, "Oh, can you guys point something out?" Look at those touchdowns.
Yeah,
A
that
lot
too.
of zeros. A lot of zeros. That's all I gotta say. Carolina, Minnesota, Chicago. Yeah, he plays his best against the worst teams. And look at that Tampa Bay. They have a decent run defense. And look,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a good job.
yeah, plays one of his worst. But I think, he likes running up the middle. He in terms of doing well, he is a 4.8 yards per carry when running. 5.1, I'm sorry, when running next to the center on next to his right guard, 5.1, 4.6 when running to the left of his center, his left guard. And then there's one other place where he flourishes and does pretty well, and that's to the left end. So that's outside of his tight end. He gets 4.8 yards per carry. So I mean, he's not like killing it in every direction. He just has to make sure that, or the 49ers just have to maybe stop him when running up the middle. And I think they're going to be able to do that. And I mean, they're not the best inside rushing team in the league either. They're I think 10th. So it's not anything to be super worried about. And as we know, the 49ers do pretty well against those run teams. And if Aaron Jones is the one guy you got to be worried about, I think the 49ers might be in a good place when it comes to that. So
Yeah, and I wanted to throw this up on the screen. I shared this yesterday as well. This is the success rate by run concept of the teams that are remaining still. And so it compares the success rate of the run offense and the run defense with these different concepts. And you see the Packers running man duo are, third, have the third best advantage against the 49ers defensive success against man duo. And, a little bit further down the list, we see Green Bay again with their inside zone runs, and they have a 3.1% advantage over the 49ers defense there. But when it comes to outside zone, they're negative 1.6%. The 49ers defense has the edge in defending against outside zone. But look at who's at the top. The two at the top are the 49ers running inside and outside zone, and they have a significant advantage against the Packers run defense there. Which brings me to, my next favorable matchup. It's Christian McCaffrey, who is going to be fresh as hell after resting a few weeks. And look, I'm not worried about McCaffrey building up any rust because he's a freak, a competitive freak. And I don't think rust is even in his vocabulary. From weeks 10 to 14, the Packers defense permitted an average of 170.4 rushing yards per game. From weeks 10 to 14, 5.7 yards per attempt, and a run play of 10 plus yards on 17.3% of their opponent's carries. But in their final 4 games, and we talked about some of the teams they were facing in their final 4 games of the season, their run defense, looked better. They allowed just 84.3 yards per game on the ground in that span. And they had the 5th lowest rate of successful run plays, or their opponents did rather, in that period, 29.3. But again, I want to bring up the fact they were going up against Chuba Hubbard, Ty Chandler, and Alexander Madison against the Vikings, Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields against the Bears, and last week, Tony Pollard, which, okay, that one's, it's pretty good. But, there hasn't been, a lot of teams that throughout the season that I've seen a lot of good run defense from the Packers. And the Cowboys last week, they just laid down simply. They had no answer for the Packers. I just don't see that happening to the 49ers and to Christian McCaffrey.
yeah, no. If there's one thing that you're gonna go with this week, I think it's the over for McCaffrey, and I believe it's 80 yards.
That seems
And
low.
that's or let me see. I think 88.5. I don't know what site that is. But one site has him at 88.5. But there's a lot of sites that have him with not him specifically, but running backs with only 68, 70. So I don't know what it is. I think it's just some a trend around the league where these betting sites aren't really betting or aren't really putting that over under too high. So I think that's something you take the over on this week. I'm gonna definitely do that. Him and the Debo over. Just saying. Just saying.
Debo as a rusher, or rushing yards, or receiving?
Receiving.
Okay. And why is that? Just out of curiosity, why you feel good about Debo?
Because he's been killing it lately. And I think this is just a game where the Packers, I'm pretty sure they allow which I know this is rushing. I think they allow the most rushing yards allowed after contact. And like I said, I know that's rushing, but still carrying the ball, tackling could be an issue. So that's another reason why I'm going to choose Debo because obviously this is a playoff game and he's going to be trying to run through guys. So really, over 125, is that the line, or you're just saying that? Hind.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hind?
What do you think? He commented, give me CMC over 125 yards.
Now I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look
Total
it up on Hard
yards.
Rock.
That total yards, that's from scrimmage then. So that's receiving and rushing. I mean, that's decent. Yeah, I mean, I would take the over on McCaffrey too. And Debo, that's an interesting one because I honestly think Brandon Ayuk, he has a tougher matchup this week against Jair Alexander. And I think Alexander's going to be most likely shadowing him, kind of like he did against CD Lamb last week. And so we might not see a lot of Brandon Ayuk. But what that does, it could open things up for other guys because the 49ers have other guys like Debo, like Kittle, even McCaffrey, who, can catch downfield as well. So to your point, Laurie, like, Debo could be the move this week if you are betting. Not that I'm giving betting advice, but just to go along with everything we're saying here. And my next favorable matchup is actually these Packers linebackers against the 49ers weapons. And in my show with Rich yesterday, he might have mentioned this, in the Substack article, Laurie, but we kind of had a laugh about, the Kyle Shanahan meme with the microscope and how, we expect that Kyle Shanahan's going to target these Packers linebackers, namely Devondre Campbell, who is pictured here, and Quay Walker. So, yeah, I mean, that can open things up for a lot of guys. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan's going to like that matchup the entire game as long as it's there.
Yeah, there's something where when defending over the middle, the Packers have the worst EPA in the league. And like it's not just the linebackers, it's just defending over the middle in general. And I saw a couple times against the Cowboys, they have their defensive tackle dropping in the coverage, like their biggest guy. And it's just like he's he's like dropping back just to maybe cover some drags, things like that, just so maybe that could mess up Purdy a little bit when it comes to the windows being open and you don't think this 300-pound tackle is going to drop into coverage. And maybe that could mess him up a little bit. But the fact that they're even using him, like just as long as they watch film and see that shouldn't be an issue. If anything, that should be a weak point and they should target that. Unless you throw it right at his chest, he shouldn't be defending anybody. And he has no right dropping into coverage in the middle of the field. That's the linebacker's job.
He has no right.
No right doing that. And so that's definitely a weak point. So, and like I mentioned already, Dak Prescott had some openings when it came to, stepping up and running through the middle. And it's because sometimes them linebackers are kind of spread a little thin. So expect that middle of the field to be open and for them to target those linebackers for sure.
Exactly. So that I think that's pretty much going to be how they attack this Packers defense. And, you add along the fact that the 49ers have a lot of pre-snap motion, just opportunity to maybe confuse and move around those defenders pre-snap and, let the chips fall where they may. But it could put these Packers defenders in compromising positions. So yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, 49ers Throwback says Kittle's going to demolish Quay Walker. Walker is undisciplined. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely, see that. And even I saw, so FTN, they put out like a preview of, the game. And they basically said, we're impressed with the Packers and all that. They had a good game against the Dallas Cowboys, but they would have to have the game of their life to be able to win to even have a chance to win, basically, is what it said against this 49ers team, just because 49ers in this offense, such a juggernaut. It's kind of like we've been saying throughout this whole episode. It's like, do we think the Packers are going to have the game of their life? against this 49ers team. I'm just not seeing it because honestly, like for them to be able to do that 2 weeks in a row against two, playoff caliber teams and
I
this
like how you
49ers
went
team being way
went
better than
Cowboys there.
yeah. And I want to give credit to the Packers for what they did last week, but at the same time, like I just know the 49ers aren't the Cowboys. Like I just know the
Yeah.
49ers are way better than the Cowboys in every way imaginable. So I just have a hard time thinking that the Packers are going to be able to replicate that.
Yeah, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's just like they're not playing against Dak Prescott. I mean, yeah, they're not playing against Dak Prescott, and I can understand how they say, oh, Brock Purdy, the game manager, but, you know, you could tell that Dak is kind of he was always trying to kind of he's always playing like he's from behind. Even when he's not. And so he's always trying to, stick the ball in the places where they shouldn't go. And just as long as, Purdy doesn't try to do that, I think they'll be able to kind of throw all over them this week.
So another video I watched, and it was from Johnny Dells, who I've had on, the podcast here before. He puts out some great film breakdowns on his YouTube, Johnny Dells Football Academy on YouTube. So he did like a preview of this game, and he cut up a bunch of clips, and he watched a bunch of like Packers film to pretty much come up with like his analysis and everything. But he used a lot of clips from last week's game. All I had to say, he did point out the Cowboys actually had success running the football, early in the game. They just never committed to it. And they came out passing the ball. And because especially they got down early, they never went away from that. And at that point, I mean, the Packers had them right where they wanted them.
Yeah.
So again, like I just don't see, I think the 49ers are going to want to run the ball right away.
They're a better game managing team.
That too. Yeah, that too. And I think the 49ers are going to be successful running the football. I think they're going to get into an early lead. When the 49ers get into an early lead against you, like
they can stick with the run.
It's a slow, painful death. Like there's really nothing you can do from that point.
Yep. It's a defense against the clock at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, with that, Laurie, score predictions. I've been giving mine like for all week. But have you thought about it?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just see. I mean, I don't think this is gonna be a game where the 49ers slowed down, and I know they had that week off, but at the same time, like I'm still thinking they're scoring pretty high.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 28 to 17. I think it's Jordan Love's gonna have some success. But I think that
28.
Yeah, I think the 49ers kind of get the ball rolling early, and then they kind of just run the ball out, run it out for the end. Oh no, we lost Steph. I had my whole setup here. Hopefully she comes back because I want to hear a score prediction.
Sorry.
What happened?
So I'm on a Mac, and sometimes when I'm scrolling, it does that thing where it like goes to the last page, like goes back in the browser. So
I thought you were afraid to give your score prediction. I was like, oh, that's it.
Afraid of the smoke. I just dipped. No, my score prediction is 34-22. The 49ers have, I think, done a good job of
22. Interesting.
22. Yeah, I know. I thought about it after, and I was like, wait, how would they even get that? Like, I was like, wait, is that even mathematically possible? Could be scoregami, who knows? But I'm gonna stick with it just because it was my prediction. I've also thought like 34-17, like that also sounds in the realm of possibility. But I'm sticking with 34-22. And I think like towards the end, it's gonna be a last ditch effort for the Packers to just get points on the board, right? So I think they're gonna get eight points towards the end of the game. That's how they get 22. Because they're gonna get a 2-point conversion after the touchdown, but it'll be like in the fourth quarter, like garbage time, game's already
Yeah.
done by then. And 34-22, that's a 12-point, win. So I think that's have the 49ers covering the spread. And yeah, I think it goes along with what we've seen from this team before.
Yeah. No, for sure. Did you write mine down?
I did write yours down. Yeah,
Okay.
28-17. And so as I was scrolling and I accidentally went back, I was trying to look for other people's predictions because I know some people put it in the chat earlier, so I wanted to put those up, but I can't find it now. But I know some
42-14. Technic chip
28-5. Five is crazy.
Damn.
That's like that has to be scoregami. 28-5. That'd be wild. 22, 3 touchdowns and 1 2-point conversion. There you go. So I'm giving him credit. Like, I think the Packers get some points up on the board. But at the end of the day, 49ers going to score more. And I'm told that's how you win football games. So, but I'm excited. I'm so stoked for this game. I'm glad it's like the night game too.
Yeah, you guys deserve that.
Yeah. So I'm stoked. Yeah, we're getting a few more predictions. 34-28. Oasis Rip said originally had it at 21-42, so 42-21, but forgot about the rain. Yeah, rain. Like, do we think that's going to play any role? I mean, the 49ers have had games where it's been like light showers before. Like, I believe the Steelers game in week 1, there was like light showers. It might have been like in the beginning of the game or maybe at some point. And didn't it rain against the Jags? Like, Laurie, didn't it rain in that game a little bit? It was like showers. Yeah, so the 49ers have dealt with that before. That's kind of like the same type of rain I'm expecting tomorrow, Saturday. I'm not expecting any like downpour or anything. So I really don't think it's going to have an impact on the game. And yeah, Tampa last year. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of like some Florida weather tomorrow. But for those of you guys who are going to the game, make sure you bundle up. 50 degrees is chilly for California folks. So bring a jacket. Have fun. Be loud. Wear red. So we see you. The 49ers going to be passing out rally towels, so that should be fun. Make sure you wave those, especially when defense is on third down. Fourth downs, all that. Lose your voice, man. If you are not losing your voice, you are not yelling loud enough. So understand the assignment and go out and execute, just like Nick Bosa says. So, all right, with that, guys, make sure you like this video. Oh yeah, Stovey, you must not be from the Bay, but since I've lived in he said 50s cold. That's cute. Yeah, I live in Colorado now, so it's like 25 degrees here, and well, I'm not outside, so I don't really know. But I've gotten used to it. But Bay Area people, 50 degrees, that's chilly. It's chilly. It's different when you're close to the ocean too. But all right, guys, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Make sure you turn on that notification bell. I'll be going live with the post game after the 49ers Packers game, so make sure you guys tune into that. But for now, have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Peace.